Good afternoon. It's nice to see you here. I'm Jane Vossler, and I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of the Community Senior Center. This is the last program of the season. We've had quite a few this winter and fall, and we'll be back again in the fall with more, hopefully, interesting things. So I want to thank the library for the use of this beautiful space. I want to thank MMC TV and Tegan especially, who does their filming. They record all of our programs, and they're available on their website and also on the CSC's YouTube channel. So people all over the world can see them if they want to. On the program committee, I want to thank our two tech people who make sure that everything is all running smoothly, Peter Swain and Ian Stokes. And the committee members who go and find the people to present, Peggy Curtis, Stevie Spalding, Kathy Gruber, Kathleen Gent, and myself. So, and especially thanks to you for coming and making all this happen. If you didn't come, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you. Let's have a round of applause for all of us. Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen. She's the one who arranged today's speaker, so.
Thank you, Jane. Were we all set with this? Great. So I'm very happy to welcome you to today's presentation, Identity Theft Workshop from AARP, titled Steal Your Name, Steal Your Life. And this is actually from AARP Vermont, the Vermont office. We had scheduled this for February. There was a snowstorm. So if you thought you heard about this previously, you probably did. So today's presenter is Elliott Greenblatt, who is the volunteer coordinator of the AARP Vermont Fraud Watch Network. He's a retired educator with over 30 years of experience as an award-winning teacher and administrator. He chaired the Brattleboro Board of Civil Authority for 30 years. He's a recipient of awards from AARP and Community Access Television. And in 2020, the Vermont legislature recognized Elliott's efforts in a joint resolution. Elliott authors a bi-weekly fraud education column appearing in several newspapers in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont, and he hosts a series, Mr. Scammer. So clearly, Elliott and all the other volunteers and AARP Vermont are committed to helping Vermonters learn more about and prevent fraud whenever possible. So I believe we're going to try to allow questions during the presentation. And so I do have a mic, which really helps MMC TV capture everything that we say. So if you do have a question or want to make a comment, please raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you. Please be sure that your cell phones are muted for this afternoon's presentation. So without further ado, Elliott.
I'm going to start just by telling you a little story about this. I've been volunteering for AARP in this program. I'm in my 12th year. And when I started doing this, I had previously been a driver safety instructor for AARP, and I got bored with it. And I said, I'm really bored with this. I don't feel I can really get much done that I want to get done. And so I said, I'm going to quit. And they said, well, how about changing programs? I said, well, to what? And I swear, I thought they said Frog Watch, not Fraud Watch. So I said, no, I really can't see myself going around to ponds and pools and all that and checking out frogs. And they said, no, fraud. Fast forward to now, and this is something that I started doing that I cannot cut back on. One is it's a very fascinating topic. And secondly, all of us who are doing this, and there are about 12 in Vermont who are volunteers in the program, all of us have a passion for helping people not become victims of some very sinister criminals. And so that's why I got into this. And I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted to fraud, which doesn't sound good. Anyway, my first introduction to fraud came many years ago. I was doing a basic presentation, and after the presentation, a woman came up to me and said, "I think I'm a victim." Okay, what happened? Well, I got a letter from TD Bank, and she said, I didn't have an account with TD Bank, so I kind of went, they're advertising. After about 2 days, she got another letter from TD Bank, and she said, this is getting ridiculous. And then another day later, she gets a phone call from TD Bank. Now, this is prior to all these scam phone calls that we're all getting. So she thought it was legit, the call from the bank, and she said, what happened, or why are you contacting me? And her response was, well, I've been getting your letters, and we want to get this thing straightened out. Why are you contacting me? And the bank officer said, well, it seems that when you opened your account with us, and she said, wait a minute, I don't have an account with you. He said, well, yes, you do. You opened an account online. She goes into the bank, and the bank officer shows her on his computer terminal that she indeed opened an online account, and they were having trouble verifying her information because there was an error on the application. Well, what kind of error? Well, your birth date was wrong. Turns out that somebody had been able to get all of her personal information, Social Security number, all of her demographic information, husband's name, address, everything that was necessary to open an account. But whoever tried this was off by 1 digit on her birth date. Now, I know a lot about this particular situation because the woman I'm talking about is my wife. And what we found out was that somebody indeed had tried to open an account, but they could not, the bank could not do a credit check. So that's how this was happening about 10 years ago. Today, it's a lot more sophisticated. And what we're going to do is look at not just the sophisticated things, but we're going to take a look at some of the more mundane things that we don't even think about when we think about fraud and we think about criminals. So hopefully what we're going to be able to do is give you a good definition of what identity theft is. And there are multiple definitions, but we're going to stick with one that I think is going to be pretty clear. Look at how identity theft happens. Now, we're not going to be dealing much with computers today. We have a separate presentation that we do on online scams. But we're going to look at just the normal day-to-day operation of criminals. We're going to have some examples of identity theft risks, the things that put you in danger. And then we're going to take a look at what you can do if you become a victim. We'll start with a short video.
Armed with just a few bits of personal information, the con artist pretends to be you.
She created accounts for me at all these credit cards. Then I was locked out.
In fact, once your identity is stolen, the con artist becomes you.
It's a lot easier for me to prove that I'm you to get your money than it is for you to prove that it wasn't you that spent that money.
Identity thieves steal from cars, homes, and right from your mailbox.
99% of debit cards that I used were stolen out of mailboxes.
They drain bank accounts, destroy your credit, and generate piles of fraudulent debt.
1 year working with the two partners that I had, we took in about $3 million in merchandise and $1 million in cash.
But for victims, the loss is far beyond financial.
I was so tired of it never ending.
Fraud investigators agree. Identity theft is epidemic, and no one is immune.
The average person will become a victim of identity theft at least once in their lifetime.
So how do you avoid becoming an identity theft victim? To find out, we went to the source. Meet Alice, not her real name. She's a convicted identity thief, as is Kevin, not his real name either. Alice and Kevin are experts because they're part of the underworld of identity thieves, most with one thing in common.
My drug use was 100% a driving factor for a while.
So what are we really looking at when we talk about identity theft? Let me tell you something that should hopefully make you feel a little insecure. Everybody in this room has had their identity compromised. Regardless of what you have done to protect yourself, your personal information is already in the hands of criminals. Initially, it starts with something called the data breach, and that's when your personal information gets in the hands of somebody who you don't want to have that information. That can happen because somebody purposely is looking for your information or just looking for information on anyone. It can happen that way, and it's hacked, it's stolen. It also happens unintentionally. When we share information, how do we do that? We share it when we walk into a business and we provide things about our background. We share information when we go online, if we're on social media. If you have a Facebook account, for instance, odds are somebody has been able to take information about you from your Facebook account. So these are things that happen regularly. And some of them are one-to-one, one person stealing from one other. In other cases, it's something that happens at a level beyond our control, meaning that a few years ago, for instance, the company that used to be IDX in South Burlington, they deal with medical records. They were breached. And everybody in the state of Vermont who has a medical insurance account covered by Blue Cross Blue Shield ended up having their information stolen. You have no control over that. You rely on those people to protect your information. They probably do the best job they can, but the problem here is that the criminals are very good at what they do. And as a result, we become victims. So first there's a data breach, and then there is identity theft. And that is somebody getting your information and your personally identifiable information. Well, what's that? We'll take a look at that in a couple seconds. And then finally, there's identity fraud. When the criminal is able to take your information and then use it. So there are different parts here. One is the information is accessed. Secondly, the information is going to be used to basically do something. So that's my introduction to this program, and you're going to be seeing about 4 or 5 video clips. We're going to take on the second one next, and in this one, we're going to pick up on our 2 criminals and see how they operate.
Our tour takes us to parking lots, through city streets, quiet neighborhoods, Regular places where people do regular things.
Turn right here. This is your standard gym parking lot.
This all-hours gym parking lot is perfect for car prowls. Why? Because while people are working out, they aren't exercising good sense by leaving valuables in their car.
And so we're sitting in the parking garage just waiting for somebody to make a mistake. They also put their laptops in the trunk, is a very common thing, and we watch them put their laptops in the trunk. This is obviously a man's car. We'd probably hit that one for sure because he probably left his wallet in the glove box. And guys have a tendency to put their PIN numbers or leave their social security cards and that kind of stuff in their wallets. See, so like this lady is going into the gym and she doesn't have anything with her. She's putting her stuff in the back and leaving to go in the gym. And so we hit that car real quick.
And if you think security guards and cameras are a deterrent, think again.
This is the security guy's truck. We've broken into that twice. He doesn't even lock his door. It does say that there's cameras, but there are in fact no cameras. We've checked.
Next, it's one-stop stealing at a busy multi-level shopping garage. Each time a car is loaded up with purchases, someone is watching.
Okay, so this is great because people are parking, they're going in shopping. Got multiple different stores accessible from the parking garage. So yeah, so see, like this guy, he could be putting all of his stuff in his vehicle and then going down to another store because he doesn't want to take it around with him. He can't take the other cart with him. Minivans are great because people leave all kinds of stuff in minivans. Oh, this Ford truck could get into that really easy. Okay, stop. This right here, see, they've got their windows down. I can reach my arm in there and open that. So I'm going to hit that even if I don't think there's anything in it.
Another example of a cash cow for thieves is a zoo parking lot. That's because it's full of tourists and distracted parents who are sure to be away from their car for hours.
Out-of-state plates are great because people come with a lot of money. Anybody with a stroller is a good mark because they don't want to carry all their stuff with them. They put their purse in the trunk and a baby stroller comes out and they're good to go. Okay, see the back of this car's got a bunch of stuff in the back, right?
Yeah.
All right, and it's also got the carrier on top. And look at that, you know a family's traveling in that. It's got luggage in it, it's probably got a laptop in it, it's got a ton of stuff. Plus I could sit and watch these people park and open their back of their car so I can see everything in it and whether I want anything in it or not.
What do you think of her? What's your impression of that woman? Is she hesitant? No. Okay. It's kind of a matter-of-fact situation. And what we find when we talk to these people is that's generally how they behave. Okay? They have great egos. They don't see that there's a big risk of being caught. And it's like, well, that's how we operate. So what's the problem? Well, for the person who's the target, obviously there's a problem. But I had the chance to speak to a gentleman named Jimmy Vitale, and for about 7 years, he was able to make a living through scams and through fraud. On average, he says he made about $5 million a year. And he wasn't part of any network, that was just him. So I asked him, Jim, what was a day like for you? Well, it was like everybody else, I'd get up in the morning, have breakfast with the family, go off to work, have lunch, come back. Sometimes I come back early because one of my kids is doing something at school and I need to be there. This is a normal life. It is not what you'd think of somebody, let's say, hulking away in the basement on a computer. No. These are wide open people because they do not see that there's a problem here. I can make a living doing this. And I've been asked by many people, why doesn't he just, if he's so good, why doesn't he get a legitimate job? Simple answer, he's successful. He likes what he's doing. Why would he want to change jobs? He doesn't have anything to motivate him for that. So let's take a look at some of the things that identity thieves do. Well, you may say, what could anybody get by going into my garbage? How many people here have recycle pickup at home? Okay. What do you put in your recycle? Junk mail is a good thing to put in the recycle. My wife takes it, and when she gets those pleas or whatever, if it's prepaid postage on the return envelope, she sends it back to them. I don't know that it does anything. But we do something else with recycle. We recycle our old credit card statements. We recycle our old medical reports, the ones you get from your insurance company or from Medicare. So we put that in the trash or in the recycle. And that's where criminals are able to access. We'll get into some tips on what to do, but I'll jump off that for a second and say, shred, get a shredder, borrow a shredder, share a shredder, and then shred those documents. We all carry on a lot of things that we don't really need to keep. Stealing information where you're employed. We found that at the University of Vermont Medical Center, this was years ago, but it was when it was the Gosbrian Hospital, and some of the workers were taking the birth certificate information from newborns, and then they were selling that. See, those are really great things to steal if you have, if you want to do that, because that child is not going to need to use the information for several years. So as a criminal, I have the information on the birth of a newborn. That's worth more than having the information on one of you, because I can create an identity and use it for that child. And then when that child comes of age, whoa, you've got a bad record here. So that's what we're looking at. Theft of items from vehicles. People put things in their cars that they really shouldn't be putting there. Documents beyond your registration and your insurance paper. There's no need to keep them in a car. A lot of people that I know of leave their Medicare cards in their car so that if they have to use the Medicare card for an appointment, it's right there. Not a good idea, because there's no need to have it there. And we have to look at our behaviors to say, are we creating problems that will come back on us? Another way that they will operate is to pretend to offer employment, housing, loan, relationship. We see a lot of these things happening today because of the number of jobs that are being vacated, the number of people looking for a job. Right now, college students who just graduated are out there, and the criminals are out there offering them employment. All you have to do is give me X, Y, and Z for information. All you have to do is pay me a job finder fee, and you're fine. We'll get you a job, we'll guarantee it. I'm sure everybody gets calls or emails or texts from somebody trying to trick you into providing information. Let's see. Has anybody gotten a call from someone saying, this is Medicare calling? And yeah, this is Medicare, or hi, I'm Glenda and I'm calling from Medicare Services. How are you doing today? Does that sound familiar? It's an artificial intelligence call. When you answer that and you say, I'm doing okay, the voice will then say, well, that's great to hear. By the way, do you know that you're eligible for X, Y, and Z for new benefits on your Medicare program? 1, Medicare will not call you unless you have an existing relationship with them, period. Medicare services like Blue Cross Blue Shield, any of the ones you see on TV, it's illegal for them to call you. You ever notice that you're not getting calls from Humana or United Healthcare or Blue Cross? Why? It's illegal. They respect the law. The criminals don't. And if you have if you've signed up for Do Not Call, it does work. The problem is the calls you're receiving are from criminals. And frankly, they don't care if they're breaking the law, because what they're doing is breaking the law, period. So, and then finally, the last one, social engineering. That's getting you to do things that normally you wouldn't do. Providing information that normally you would say, no, I'm not going to get that. We do that willingly, by the way. Anybody in this room ever fill out a warranty card? Have you noticed that on many warranty cards, you may be buying a television and they want your serial number, the model number, where you bought it, what date you bought it, that's fine. But then why do they need to know how many people are in your household? Why do they need to know how old you are? Why do they need to know your preferences when having free time to do things? They need to know that for the purpose of advertising. So we end up giving them all kinds of information that we really don't need to do. And the reality is you do not have to complete warranty cards. All you have to do, keep a record of the purchase. But we kind of get intimidated because it all looks so very official. The overwhelming majority of stolen profiles on the dark web are seniors. They are the easiest to acquire. They have the most value, and they are the least likely to become compromised because most seniors don't check their accounts online. This is from somebody who's a criminal, who's just telling you this is where it is, this is how it happens.
Mailboxes. For identity thieves, they're a gold mine.
These people obviously don't check their mail often, and if they do, look at, there's a little packet thing right in front, that envelope, that manila envelope, that's got my attention right away.
It's called mailboxing, slang for stealing from mailboxes. For identity thieves, your red flag is a green light to grab outgoing mail.
Somebody will be in the car and will actually flag, and the car will stop immediately. Well, we know what that means. And so outgoing mail is really good for getting bank account numbers and things of that sort, because you send your outgoing checks to make payments on things.
And if your mailbox isn't locked, delivered mail contains bank statements, credit card offers, tax forms. Once they get your information and create their fake identity, identity thieves can steal money you don't even have.
Right now, what we see most is ID thieves opening new accounts instead of just draining your current or existing bank account.
Mafe Rahul is a senior deputy prosecuting attorney specializing in identity theft and other economic crimes. She says identity thieves steal not just your money, but any of your credit they can find. The thieves then rush to convert your credit to cash.
A lot of times we first learn of suspect because they are caught on video using a victim's credit card or a victim's ID.
I would say that the main thing that you use other people's credit for is to buy things that you know that you can sell. Department stores were really good because department stores have gold. Gold is an asset that can be immediately turned into cash.
As part of a crime ring, Kevin was the master ID maker. Raul shows us a sampling of his talent. He says he made between $50,000 to $100,000 a month in identity theft.
Within any identity theft ring, people do tend to specialize. Typically, there's somebody who does the fake identifications, somebody else who will do the online IT, if you will, types of crime, or somebody else who will do the stealing of the information through car prowls, through burglaries of homes, or through stealing mail from mailboxes.
Kevin was busted after setting up shop at a cheap motel. Inside, police found a virtual fake ID factory.
This is not anything that I would call super sophisticated. If you have at home a decent printer, a decent computer, and a scanner, you can create whatever you want, and you can find the templates online. All you have to do is download and then create. So we're not talking about super sophistication, we're talking about normal, average, everyday things. Think about, where we've gone in roughly the last, I'm going to say 30 to 40 years. 40 years ago, I was working on a computer in a school district. I started doing that not because I had any great interest in the computer stuff. It was an air-conditioned space. The computer was about a quarter the size of this room, or filled the space like that, card punch systems. It was a nice, cool place to work. But nobody had computers other than businesses, school districts, things like that. Fast forward to 2025. How many people in this room have a computer? How many people in this room have a tablet? How many people in this room have a smartphone? How many of you had those things 20 years ago? Handful. Okay? That's where we've gone. And the ability to do what these criminals are doing is basically in the hands of everybody in this room. Why don't you do it? No, think about it. No, I'm not urging you to go out and become a criminal, but I'm saying that there's no magic to this. It's all very basic in the way we live today. So here are some myths, some things that people tend to want to believe, but they're not really things that we should be believing. You cannot easily solve identity theft. It is a process that to get out of the identity theft that may never happen, because once your information is out, it's out there. You can't pull it back. There is no such thing as a zero liability policy. If you lose money to a scam that's the result of identity theft, there may be some restitution out there from, for instance, the state of Vermont has a fund that will pay some people back. Problem, the fund is exhausted. What month are we in? May? The fund available for Vermonters from Montpelier is empty now. So you're not going to be able to count on getting the money back. Another myth, you can avoid identity theft by not shopping online. It is safer for you to shop online in a secure website than it is for you to walk into Costco or Walmart. You're more likely to have something taken from you there on your credit card than you are by shopping online. And then Shredding documents will keep thieves from accessing your address. No. Your address is out there. I did a little search on a friend of mine. He's an 86-year-old retired physician. And I said, you know, Art, I can find a lot about you. And within about 10 minutes, I was able to dig out, without a lot of effort, where he went to school. He went to Dartmouth. What his rank in class was when he graduated, where he practiced his profession, which happened to be initially at Dartmouth and then at the Cheshire Medical Center in Keene. All of this was out there. And then to add to it, for the address piece, I just went to the town that I knew he lived in, plugged in his name, was able to see that he owned property there, went to the town records, grand list, and I was able to get the value of his house, how many rooms it had. So all that information is out there. You cannot stop thieves from getting most of it because it's publicly accessible. Here's some more myths. Identity theft only affects adults. No. You don't even have to be alive and breathing. One of the things we've seen in the last couple of years is the amount of identity theft and then scams perpetrated on people who have passed away. How do they get the information? It's very easy. Get a copy of the paper and look up the obituaries. See what people put in obituaries. You want to honor the person who passed away, but what you're doing is you're providing the world all the information about that person. Debit cards are not safer than credit cards. There's this myth out there that, you know, I'm okay if I use a debit card, and so I'm going to use it everywhere I go. A couple reasons why. One is a debit card removes the money from your account when you use it. Credit card, you get a monthly statement. You have a time in place to challenge charges. The other thing with a debit card is that most people have difficulty tracking what their expenses are. If you walk into a grocery store and use a debit card, you walk into a hardware store, you use a debit card. Now you got all these different withdrawals happening, and they're harder to track, so people are less vigilant. Credit cards, yeah, you can contact the company and say, you know, this was used by somebody else, and the vast majority of the time credit card companies will waive the charge. So, identity theft victims can count on law enforcement for protection. No, you can't. If you say your identity was compromised and you call the local police department or the Vermont State Police or even the Vermont Attorney General's office, you may get some sympathy, but there's very little they can do unless you can link it to someone who actually took your information. Since a lot of this happens from overseas people, the jurisdiction of the Richmond Police Department has very little impact here. And even agencies like the FBI, it's very difficult to operate in other countries. So you can't really count on law enforcement unless you're very lucky or the person that's committed the crime is local. And then privacy settings on social networks protect against identity theft. No. You may remember several years ago when Facebook became the big social media event, people were going around saying, well, you know what? I've got 200 friends on Facebook. And somebody else would say, well, that's no big deal. I've got 400 friends on Facebook. What does that mean? It means you've invited 400 people to look at your personal information. That's what it means. And when you ask folks, How many of the 400 do you know personally? 10, 20. So now you've opened yourself up to identity theft through that sort of thing happening.
Helen, not her real name, is one of Alice's victims. Because Helen didn't monitor her bank accounts, credit cards, or credit reports online, Alice moved in for the kill.
I couldn't even prove that I was who I was because she had taken so much. She had taken my social security number, my mother's maiden name, and she had made herself into me.
And I really put her through the ringer. I knew everything about her. And what I didn't know, I changed to what I wanted it to be. And then I took over everything. And she didn't even know. I registered her online for American Express. I issued new cards. I changed the address. I got a full background credit report on her because they have that credit monitoring service. So I just signed her up and printed out everything I needed to know and took over her whole life. Registered her on all three credit bureaus that she wasn't ever registered on. Changed background information, changed her work history, changed her phone numbers. I changed everything. I held her mail. I was her, and she couldn't prove that I wasn't.
As with most identity theft victims, by the time Helen caught on, it was too late.
What I found out when she went online and created accounts for me at all these credit cards, then I was locked out because I didn't know any of the information, and she had all her information in there. And she was able to order new credit cards for my accounts.
When Alice was finally arrested, she had 10 fake IDs in her purse, including Helen's. She had racked up thousands of dollars in debt, and Helen continues to pay the price.
Every time I thought it was over, she would do something again to disrupt my life. This has affected my credit score by lowering it 150 points. It's very hard for me to get credit now.
While you can't protect yourself 100%, you can take effective steps to safeguard your information from exploitation by thieves. Criminals are looking for easy targets, so don't make it easy to target you. Here are some safety tips.
So now we get to the real important part. You've seen what the scene is, what identity theft looks like, how it impacts a victim, how the criminals consider it. So now we get to, so what can I do? If everything about me is already in the hands of the bad actors. Here are some what I call low-tech tips. These are things that you don't have to be technology-based or anything like that, but you don't leave things in your car. I already mentioned that. People do this all the time. Oh, I'm just going into the drugstore to get something. I'll leave these papers on the seat. That's an invitation. And by the way, one thing we know about these criminals is essentially they're lazy. So if they see something on the seat that looks attractive and they try to open the door and the door opens, guess what? Whatever it is gone. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad stuff. Doesn't matter if it's valuable or not. If it's not valuable, they'll just toss it. So, yeah, these guys, as I said, they're lazy, so what you do? Don't put things out that can be seen and taken. Lock your car. Well, I'm not going that far. Lock your car. Once your car is there, parked, and the door is open, that's almost like an invitation. And if the door is locked, they'll try another car. They're not going to keep trying to force it. Generally, they won't break a window to get in unless there's something really valuable that can be seen. So, that's one way to approach it. Documents in a locked or private location. What kind of documents? Well, definitely things like a passport, a social security card, a Medicare card. And people will say to me, well, I need my Medicare card because, well, I'm here in the library, and if I'm driving home and I'm in an accident and they take me to the hospital, they're going to want to see my medical card. I said, yeah, you're going to be bleeding to death, and they want to see your card before they do something? No, they will say, bring it later. But we tend to think, we got to have it with us. No, you don't. Any type of valuable document, including a will, trust papers, all should be kept in a locked, private location, not just sitting in a file cabinet. The odds of somebody breaking into your home are actually very slight, but if there's a reason for them to think that there's something of value, that increases the likelihood. Shred everything. I say almost everything, but anything that has an account number and you don't need that paper anymore. Anything that has personal medical information and you don't need it anymore. The reality is when the bank or a credit card company sends you a statement and you finished looking at it, why do you need it? Did you know that they have copies at the bank and at the credit card company? So if you need a copy and you already have online access, you can get a copy anytime you want. You can call that place and get a copy whenever you want. You don't need to keep all these papers. Now I'll tell you a little secret. I don't follow my own advice. And at the end of the year, when I'm trying to do the tax stuff and whatever, and I have all those statements from the credit cards, now I'm sitting in front of my shredder for about an hour. No need to do that. But I'm a creature of habit, and that's also what most of us are. So shred everything that you don't need to keep. Another little secret. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was cleaning out boxes of stuff in my basement. Well, I didn't want to do it, but my wife said, you better clean out the boxes in the basement. So I said, I'll do that. And I went down, and I taught public school for 25 years before I went into administration. And my first teaching job in Vermont was at North Country Union High School in Newport. 5 years ago, and that, by the way, was from 1973 to 1979. I went in the basement and I found my lesson plan books from 1973 to 1979. I had these great lessons, by the way, on the Soviet Union. I moved 3 times between then and now. So I took these boxes of stuff and moved them. But I found something else when I was looking. I found a box that was sealed, and it happened to be IRS tax returns. I had a box of IRS tax returns that went back to 1986. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. Why would I need 1986 tax returns? But see, we become victims of our own behavior, and that's one of the behaviors things that I have to deal with. If you find you're in that situation, shred. Don't just toss it in recycle. Check and monitor your credit reports. You can go online to annualcreditreport.com anytime you want to and get free, no strings applied to them, free copies of your credit report. If you go to one of these services like Equifax or Expedia directly, they'll give you them, but they'll also wrap you up into something where you're getting identity theft protection, and you get a free service for a year, and then you get billed on an annual basis for it. You don't need to do that. Credit freezes. This is something that most people do not do, but I urge that anybody, any age, should contact the 3 major credit bureaus and put in place a freeze. What it does is it locks your information so that somebody can't just send them an inquiry and then get your credit report. You have to approve it. It's a free service. If you need a copy of your credit report, you can lift the freeze, no charge, and then set it back in place. So let's say you plan on buying a new car and you're going to be buying it on a payment plan and they need a copy of your credit report. You can open up the credit report for that short period of time. They'll be able to look at it and then it locks up again. No cost to do that. It's a very safe practice. High-tech tips. This may be a place where many people kind of at a loss, but you need to have online access to every account that you have. Every credit card, bank account, investment account. You need to be able to go online and either see what's going on or report that something's going on. And that way you don't have to say, oh, what's the number? Oh, let's look at the back of the credit card, and then, no, you get instant access. And it's very safe. Next, watch out when you're using Wi-Fi. American hotels, motels have started providing to people who are staying free Wi-Fi. So you're at the hotel, you're in the privacy of the room, you open up your computer or your tablet, they give you a free Wi-Fi password, and you go online. But you don't think of the fact that there are 180 rooms in this hotel, and everybody in the hotel is using the same password. Which means it's like an open briefcase, open room, because you can go in and if you have the right skills, you can see what other people are doing. That's a little discomforting. There is a way, by the way, to not be at risk, and that's called using a VPN, a virtual private network. They do not cost a lot of money, but they do have a monthly fee on most of the good ones. It locks out somebody from being able to see what's on your computer. It's that and the credit freezes are probably my 2 biggest recommendations. Don't use simple passwords. There's another behavior issue. We tend to create passwords or passphrases that are very simple. One of the surveys done by Intel Corporation 3 or 4 years ago was by surveying people about their passwords. They found out that about 24% of the people in the United States, their password was the word password. Why? Because it's easy to remember. And if you're creating a password for every account that you have, now you're probably saying, oh my God, you know, that's like 60 passwords. How am I going to remember them? Very easy way. Have a notebook. They work very well. The odds of somebody breaking into your house and stealing your notebook with the passwords are very unlikely. So, you know, create complex ones. That's the easiest thing to do is use a song title. Then have that song title for one account, not using it on several accounts. The new thing that we see a lot of now are passcodes. You're probably familiar with them in that, you go to log into something and you put in your ID and your password, and then it says, we're going to send you a text message with a code, enter the code. That's a passcode. And that adds one level of complexity before somebody can enter into an account, and that can keep the criminals out. Because hopefully, the passcode that they're going to send is a text message to your phone, and you have your phone with you. Criminals won't have that phone. Multi-factor identification, that's what it's called. If it's available, use it. If you have a bank account and you go online and they are not using multi-factor, contact the people at the bank and say, why aren't you using it? This is safe. The way we're doing it now isn't. Let them know. The other thing you can do is get a password manager. And this is a piece of software that you buy. You create a single password, and then you add all of your other passwords into the password manager. And anytime you need it, you can access it. You don't have to remember all your passwords. Another thing that I'm really, concerned about is people will say, well, I change my password about once a month. According to the folks who handle security, that's a bad practice. Because what happens is you've created a password, you think it's pretty good, now you're going to go change it. What do? You change the last character of your password. That means your new password is more susceptible than your original one. So, independent passwords for every account, that's the way to go. So what happens if you have your identity stolen and fraud is committed? The first thing to do is write down as many of the details about the incident as you can remember. So if there are names involved, account numbers involved, specific date involved, put this all down on paper so that a day from now, you're not going to forget it. You tell me something now, and if I don't write it down, tomorrow it's like it never happened. That's what we change IDs and passwords, not frequently, but if there's been a compromise, if your ID's been stolen, there's a problem. That's the signal to say, I better change my passwords. Contact the bank, the credit union, the brokerage firm, the credit card company. Contact whoever that account is related to and let them know. What they most likely will do is close the account, transfer whatever is in the account to a new account, give you a new account number and a new ID. Same thing with credit cards. I had the misfortune on Monday of flying back to home from Tampa. And somehow I lost my wallet on the plane. I called everybody. I called my daughters, I called my son. They couldn't do anything. But I called the credit card companies. They asked me if these charges sound familiar. And they did. I said, fine, we're going to close that account, we'll send you a new card. Everything's taken care of. That's why. Report it. Notify the credit bureaus. If you don't have a freeze, set a freeze or set an alert. Those are the contact information. There's also, all this is on the back table, so you don't have to write it all down. But contact the credit bureaus and tell them there's a problem here. And if you haven't got a freeze, set it now. file a police report. If you've suffered a loss, and I know what I just said about law enforcement, but file a police report, because that copy may be your ticket to getting some action. Failure to do that, agencies like the Federal Trade Commission, they'll say, well, did you file a crime report? No, I didn't. Well, there's not much we can do now. So you need to do that. Report the breach to the Federal Trade Commission. They will take the information and they will follow up on it. Maybe you will get some kind of restitution. Likely not, but at least the record is there. And if anything is found, they can come back to you. Create a recovery plan. FTC actually has a brochure, How to Recover from Identity Theft. It's a very simple written process. In reality, it's a very complex set of procedures, but it gives you some way to get things back in order. And then order your free copies of the credit reports. Check and see if there's anything that isn't right. What are you looking for? You're looking for whether the base information, your address, your age, things like that are right. If they aren't, it generally means somebody has altered your information and you need to report that. So looking at the credit report for what's in it becomes a critical thing. If the problem occurs in your Medicare plan, report it. Medicare fraud is in the tens of billions of dollars a year. Some of it is technically not fraud because it's just mistakes that are made in the processing of paperwork. In other cases, the fraud is committed by providers, doctors, pharmacies, clinics, where they're trying to cut corners. And the typical way they do that is you go in for one procedure, they record it as something a lot more complex, so their payback is a lot higher. Doesn't happen a lot, but it happens enough so that tens of billions of dollars are lost. The other place you can contact besides Medicare is an organization called Senior Medicare Patrol, or SMP. And they're the service side of Medicare in Vermont and in every other state. So those are things you can do that would be probably very, very helpful. AARP Fraud Watch has a website, and I really love it because it's updated about 2 or 3 times a week. It will focus on what the latest scams are anywhere in the country. It also has a emergency hotline. You can see the number there that you can call and speak to a trained volunteer who can help you work your way through the scam and let you know what you should be worried about. You can also get alerts from AARP. Every week there is a new alert, and it's something that is a currently hot scam issue that's happening in the country. So the website, a lot of updated and current information. There are a couple other things on the website. This is, I know you can't see it, but this is a list of about 80 different scams. It tells you what the scam is by topic. It then describes how the scam is perpetrated. Then it tells you these are the things to be looking for, and this is what you should do if you are a victim. So comprehensive list. It's probably the best resource on the website. There is one other on the website, and it's a map. This is one that I took this morning. It's a tracking map The red circles you see are reported scams in Vermont. One of them, a couple of them are near Montpelier. Not that that's significant, but isn't the legislature still in? Yeah, okay. But this is one way to see what's on the ground now. What do people see happening to them? What is law enforcement seeing right now? And although this just focuses in on Vermont, you can expand this out to the whole country. And where you see on Vermont like little red dots, when you go into like Massachusetts and you look at the Boston area, it's like the whole thing is covered. So, yeah, depending on the area, you're going to have different levels of, scamming taking place. The important piece here is that most people who are victims of fraud do not say anything. They don't tell others, and there's a good reason why. You see, as a society, we shame the victim. How do we do that? Very simple. Walk into a room like this with a number of people in it, and I make this statement. Boy, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. I lost $3,000 in a scam. This is what the scam was. And then somebody in that room says, how could you have fallen for that? I've got a 14-year-old granddaughter, and she would have figured it out like that. What's the likelihood of the person telling anyone? I don't like being shamed, humiliated, things like that. So the result is you've clammed up the most important person, because that person telling you I was scammed may protect you from becoming a victim. That's the critical part of talking about scams. AARP Fraud Watch has been in action for about, this point, 15 years. I've been involved for 11 of the 15. It is a program that is offered to the public free of charge. We do not charge for the program. We do not charge for the materials. And by the way, there is a table full. Please take. The more things you take, the less I have to pack. But I'd be happy to take any questions before we close out.
So we have about 15 minutes.
I think I heard you say there are two things that you do today. One is credit freeze activity, and the other was dealing with VPNs.
Yep.
I think you covered credit freeze activity. Do you have any suggestions on further actions on VPN?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can find out about VPN through a very simple process called Googling. Now, like everything else online, it's all swayed by advertising. And you know that when you do a search, the ones at the top of the search are typically the ones that pay the most to be on the top of the search. So, be prepared for that, but look for neutral sources. For example, the three places I go to, one of them is Consumer Reports. Another one is PC Magazine. Even though they have advertising, their reviews of things are pretty spot on. The third one is a technology-based site called CNET, C-N-E-T. And they do reviews. They also rank the things like VPNs, also antivirus software. They tell you all about them, how much they cost, who this would be good for, who it wouldn't be good for, what services they provide. So you can do that, and I'd say going to any of those three sources, or all three of them, will give you a good view of what you should do. Typically, what a VPN does is you install the software. I don't know if I can, no, I can't bring it up. You install the software, and when you're going online, and I use it extensively when I'm traveling, I turn on the VPN. Now, my address is concealed, my computer address. And it uses an alternate site. So all my communications go through the alternate site. They don't know where I am, they don't know who I am, they don't know what I'm using for equipment. That's what a VPN does. It secures your communications. I ran a test, and this is something we do in our computer fraud program. I went to one of the sites that offered me $50 for taking a survey. You may have seen these things. You know, you can get a $50 gift card too. All you have to do is answer a few simple questions. So you click on the link in the email. That one click told whoever was on the other end where I was located, what kind of computer I was using, what kind of software I had on the computer, how up to date my software was, all with one click. They already had my email address because they sent me an email. So they add that, and now I've given them a lot of information with one click. So that's what a VPN will protect you from. There are also the last two things on here in the red. Criminal behavior mutates. It's a virus. And the guys who are doing the things we see happening are good at being able to read what is successful and what isn't. They will not waste their time on something that does not produce for them. So when you're getting these phone calls, and you may say, oh, these are really annoying, I get 10 of them a day or whatever. Think of it this way. They must be making money doing it. So the likelihood of those phone calls ending, not really, because they're making money. And complacency is the enemy. Failure to act in your own behalf will end up with a negative result. I have people who come up to me after presentations saying, well, that was all interesting, but I'm too smart to be scammed. And my response to that is, have you ever heard the name Steven Spielberg? Oh, yeah. Do you think Steven Spielberg is an intelligent person? Oh, yeah, you know, those movies. Did you know that Steven Spielberg lost between $5 and $15 million in the scam? What do you mean? Yeah. He trusted a friend of his, a guy named Madoff. And he invested money with him. And he lost, he won't say how much, but we're guessing between 5 and 15 million. That's, you know, complacency is the enemy. Other questions?
Well, this is just a comment on the VPN that I have a VPN and I have a password manager and they're the same company, so that's helpful. And VPNs can also wreak havoc. So I got camera that can connect to my phone, but it wouldn't connect because the VPN was on. So it's just some little tips about if you do get your VPN, there are quirks in your phone, but they're really helpful to have.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for just a couple more.
Is ransomware something that individuals need to worry about?
Yes. But it's hard to tell when ransomware is real or when it's fake. For example, with about 5 seconds of audio tape, I can recreate a whole conversation with that person's voice. And then you get the call and you say, well, I know that's who it is. So, most of the ransomware scams are not ransoms, but they're fake. And trying to convince you that, somebody has been kidnapped. The other thing that is very real is when a criminal threatens you with denial of your computer use. That's really something that we watch out for. That's what happened to multiple medical centers where their files were locked up until they paid exorbitant ransom. Those things happen because the systems that are being used are either outdated or weak. And because these people are constantly changing what they do, the people who are on the other side protecting have to keep that in mind and kind of anticipate where things are going.
Last one.
By the way, I'm going to put my AARP card out on the table. Has my email address, and you can contact me at any time.
Okay. I made an online purchase last November, had a fraudulent charge on my credit card in February. We closed that account, got a new card with a different number, and now I've just received a letter saying, our company had a data breach, your information was compromised. They're offering 1 year free credit monitoring. I've learned today that I should go ahead and put a freeze on those accounts. Is 1 year monitoring enough? What other steps should I take at this point?
1 year is better than no years, but the information that was compromised likely includes information that doesn't die in a year. If it, for example, is your social security number, that's going to stay with you, and you can't change it. So, I kind of look the other way on these offers for protection, because they'll say, we'll cover you with $1 million in the event of any. I don't know anybody who's collected. And I've asked people who have gone through this. The best defense is you. And I don't have one of these systems in place. I don't have a fraud prevention thing, because my knowledge is that you can't prevent it. So what they're going to do, and I like this because LifeLock used to say, we don't just monitor your credit, we act. Well, the only way you can act is if you monitor. At least that's my understanding. If you don't monitor, you don't know what's happening. So I don't use one of those services because I have confidence in the fact that I can go online and I can check my credit cards and my bank account in a matter of minutes, and I'll know. And I'll know before they will. So, I'm not saying that it's a bad service, by the way. For some people, I think it's a necessary service. But I do believe that the 1-year or 2-year coverage is minimal, and then after the year, you're out for paying to have that continue. I don't see that as a great bargain. And given the number of data breaches that are happening literally every day, you can only be covered once. Yeah? So they're good for a year. What do you do in a year? Well, I had 5 other breaches. Well, they were last year, and you can't go back to that. Congress, not that they will do anything, but Congress has to do something so that that protection is real and not just a Band-Aid.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's a great presentation and lots of good new resources for us. So thank you, Elliott, for joining us today, and thank you all for coming.
Just to be clear, we have 8 different presentations that we do, and we'll do it for any size group, free of charge, anything from 2 to 130 people or more. So if you have a group that you are involved in and you think one of these presentations would be good, take my card, contact me, and we can set something up.
Maybe we can do another presentation through the Senior Center next year.
By then, we'll probably have 10 different programs. Yes.